Hello, welcome to another edition of Ask the Chiropractor. Recently, here in the chiropractic clinic, we were asked a question about posture. It says, chiropractors, how important is posture? So we always encourage people to go ahead and ask us questions, leave us questions, and we do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. And that's what this segment is here. It's called Ask the Chiropractor. So when a patient comes in and asks us a question that we feel would be just a good question to share with everybody, or when somebody emails a question, we try to address it here. We've always said if you have a question for a chiropractor, you should ask a chiropractor. So this is the Ask the Chiropractor. So back to the posture. So people ask me, how important is posture? When I see somebody walking, a lot of times I'll look at my friend and say, oh, that person has an L4 problem. Or that person, look at the way they're leaning. That person has a really swollen spot in their neck. So somebody one time told me that posture is the shadow to the health of your brain. So it's really interesting how important posture is. Now, one thing we do here with posture is when we bring you into the clinic, we have you stand at a platform. The table gently lowers you down. And as it lowers it down, we look at you as you're lying down, and we see a high shoulder, we see a low shoulder, we see a hip that's up in the air, or maybe a foot that's having a hard time hitting the table, or even a leg that's maybe your hips are totally shifted to the left side of the table, not the right side of the table. We know it gives us great clues of where to adjust you, especially based on your x-ray films. We put those two things together and give you a really, really good adjustment. But posture does other things too. Posture is a way to accelerate the arthritis in the spine, especially in the neck, the cervical spine. What happens is the human head weight is the same as a bowling ball. And whenever we sit, we roll our shoulders forward, our head comes out like this. And what that does is it increases the stress on the bottom two vertebrae. See, normally your neck has a nice round shape to it, which has like a shock absorber, taking the weight and everything. But when you lose that, and it's a straight up and out curve, and your head goes forward with the weight of a bowling ball, all that weight translates into the bottom two vertebrae. And that's a lot of stress on those two. And what happens is those two will start to lock up because of the extra stress. And we've talked so many times before about the key to disc health is motion. So when you move around and you bend and twist like that, the muscles around there contract and they push nutrients into that joint space. But with the bad posture, that's not happening, and those discs are drying up. And as they dry up, that's when the arthritis kicks in. So people who are really, really bad posture tend to accelerate the onset of osteoarthritis in their necks, especially in their necks, the lower backs too, but today's world is much more than neck. Now I'm talking about one more thing here too. When it talks about posture, you see that we are upright. We say I walk on two legs. We have curves to our spine, and this all keeps the spinal cord right where it's supposed to be. And the spinal cord comes down, and as it goes down, it has nerves that exit it at different levels. And another thing that the spinal cord has is things called dentate ligaments. And the dentate ligaments, they shoot out and they attach the spine, they anchor the spine down inside the spinal canal, inside the bones. And the dentate ligaments right there. The problem what we see is that when we lose our posture, we go forward. And now what happens, there's a tugging on the spinal cord because we've altered our posture. And if we add like a twist and turn on top of that, there's just so much tugging and yanking on the spinal cord now, because it's starting in bad posture, bad position, that just increases the stress to it. And these dentate ligaments are not going to like reform or regrow. They're going to stay right where they are. So as you increase the stress, you increase the pulling on the spinal cord, literally the pulling on the spinal cord. And this can create all kinds of havoc, especially when you remember what the spinal cord's attached to. It's attached to the brain, right? Because it directly attaches to the brain. In the bottom of our skull, we have a thing called the foramen magnum. It's a big hole where the spinal cord comes out and part of the midbrain. And what happens is as we go forward like that, the dentate ligaments, they stay a hold. They don't let go. And as we go forward, the spinal cord can do one or two things. It can either pull up from the bottom or it can pull down from the top. And because we're all the way near the top, it's going to pull down more from the top. That starts to pull on our midbrain. It starts to pull on some of our mechanisms we have at the base of our skull. And one of the really areas that we've seen recently in chiropractic research that it really affects is the spinal fluid flow. There was a time when we had basically a analysis of how the spinal fluid works and how it doesn't work. And today we've updated that tremendously. It has a lot to do with venous drain, the blood coming out of your head. It uses those channels too, and it goes through filters. And that's kind of how that gets rid of the toxins around the brain. So, and it also, the spinal fluid will pump nutrients into the brain. So if we have a problem with our spinal fluid, we have a problem with the overall health of our brain. So what we see is that when we go forward like that, those dentate ligaments pull on the spinal cord, they pull in the midbrain coming through the foramen magnum, there could be all kinds of problems with getting nutrients in and out of the brain. If you look at the work of Scott Rosa, he's a famous chiropractor that helped Jim McMahon go back to being Jim McMahon. He actually has a motion MRI machine that he can actually see the spinal fluid come and go. And he sees that when the top bones in the neck are under so much stress from posture issues, that the spinal fluid flow actually stops. And so what he did with Jim McMahon, and you can look this up, there's a 30 by 30 for about the 85 Bears where he does this whole breakdown of this. He has a special adjustment tool that he does way up inside and right in the base of the skull. He was able to do that adjustment. He was able to get the spinal fluid flowing again. Jim McMahon described it as like having his brain flushed, like a toilet bowl flushes. All the old spinal fluid came out, all the new stuff came rushing right back in. And he started to finally get relief from his headaches and his injuries he had from all those headshots he took. So it's really interesting for us to watch this. So posture is very important when it comes to spinal fluid flow. When you lean the head forward like that, it can really, really choke it off. Not only that, but now we're also putting pressure on the veins and the arteries coming in and out of the neck too, because they're getting moved around and shoved around too. And so now we have a blood deficit going up and a venous drainage flow problem coming out. And we're getting a lot of stuff backed up in the brain. And now today we're seeing more and more people with brain health issues, mental health issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, and stuff like that. And maybe there's a correlation between your posture and that stuff. So here in the clinic, what we'll do is when we take a look at your films, we'll get a really good idea of your posture. And we're actually going to send you home with exercises and stretches to work on. You know, my simple favorite one, if you want to know 2 easy ones to do to make your neck better real quick. One, go up against a flat surface, the floor, the wall. Have everything touch the flat surface and look out. You look, your face is up. And with your hands and your shoulders and your head and your hips and everything touching, give me 25 big snow angels every day. And that helps change the fact that we spend all day hunched over looking at screens or driving or looking in front of us as we work. So 25 big snow angels every day is huge. The other thing I ask everyone to do is stand up from time to time and bringing your chin retracted, not like looking down the ground, just straight back. Make sure you're straight back. Then what you do is you squeeze your shoulder blades together. So they're like you're like trying to hold a grapefruit behind your shoulder blades. And then while you got them there and while you're holding them together, try to slide them down like you're going to put them in your back pockets and hold that for a good 10 count. And I always tell everybody in an ideal world, we would do that every 30 minutes of sitting. We would stand up, pull them back like that, and hold them down. So some of the neat things I've seen here over the years, and I talked about your posture being a shadow to the health of your brain. When I first started working here, I was working with my father, and he had many, many years of experience. And we had a patient come in. And this is a patient that used to come quite a bit, but for whatever reason, we didn't see her for a couple of years. And she came back in, and the one thing I noticed about her was I said, wow, look at how bad her posture got. Because she used to keep her ears above her shoulders the way you're supposed to. But when she came in, her chin was all the way forward. And it looked like she was about ready to fall on her face. Her neck posture was so forward, I thought she was going to fall down. So this is what happened is she had left us and she started going out and getting tons and tons of working with medical doctors and doing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of medicine and psychiatric drugs and stuff like that. And those things are pretty toxic stuff. And there's a place for them, but they're really, really, really toxic stuff that goes on there. So what happens is that forward head posture starts going out more and more and more. It weighs on them more and more and more. And it pulls in their brain more and more and more. My father looked at me and goes, that's too bad. So what's the matter? He said that she's got so much drugs. It's looked how much was done to her spine. Look at what's done to her posture. Look how she's going to fall over. He goes, I don't think she'll live for another month. And, just by looking at her posture, he was able to predict that. Unfortunately, she passed away within 2 weeks. It's just amazing to me. Now that I've been in practice for almost 20 years, I see the same stuff. I see people walking around. I see their posture and stuff like that. When I haven't seen a patient in a really long time and they come in the office and I see them like that, I know that they're in crisis mode and I know it's time to get really aggressive. So I'm not saying everyone that's leaning forward like this is going to have a problem like that. I'm talking about somebody who never leaned forward like that. Now all of a sudden they are totally like that. Now it's a reason to be concerned. And there's other reasons it happens too. Maybe they got a car accident. They just have a swollen joint. So don't read too much into that. But yeah, so talking about when I heard this quote over the weekend that your posture is a shadow to your brain's health, that's immediately who I thought of. I thought about that story from 18 years ago, whatever it was, 19 years ago with my father. It was pretty neat to see that actually. Not neat to see somebody pass away, but it was neat to see his tuition was actually right, judging at their posture. So yeah, posture is huge to us. So if you know somebody that spends way too much time hunched over with their chin out in front of them or their shoulders rolled forward, that's a great reason to go see a chiropractor and get your spine checked. Because long term, it could have some serious effect with the spinal fluid flow, the arterial venous flow in and out of the brain. and just the overall pulling on the brain. Just imagine that brainstem being pulled down. That hole's only so big, and what happens is the brainstem gets narrow as it comes out. But if you're pulling on it like this, coming straight down, you're going to clog that. It's going to actually literally clog it. But there are chiropractic adjustments that can help with that. Some of them we can do here. Some of them I know a specialist in Chicago that can help you if that's the case. So those dentate ligaments are really strong. They're not going to give up their fight. So if you have a question about chiropractic or a question for the chiropractor, go ahead and leave a comment below. We'll get back to you, answer your question as soon as we can. I see some friends of mine have joined us a little live here. If you're watching live with me, my friends, other chiropractors across the world joining us, watching us. I was to spend the weekend with chiropractors from all over the world working on legislative matters, political matters, and the future of our profession. So it's always fun. But if you have a question about chiropractic or about for chiropractic care for you or somebody you know, ask a chiropractor. Don't ask a dentist. Don't ask a family doctor. Ask a chiropractor. Go ahead and leave a message below. I'll see your message below, and I'll be happy to get back to you. And hey, maybe next week I'll be answering your question. Until then, stay in one piece. If you have any issues, let us know. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.